Hinga is a goddess who watches over the souls of the living and the ill pray to her. She assigns the dead to the care of the moon god who brings souls back to earth upon her instructions in order to begin a new life. Hinga also carefully watches over the actions of humans, especially the way they treat animals. She protects all living creatures and controls the hunt. She is also the Inuit goddess of fertility and healing. She was named Mother of the Caribou and was believed to dwell in heaven. She was also the guardian of souls and was responsible for bringing the bodies of the newly dead to the transit area where the souls are purified before moving on. Another aspect of Pinga is her relationship with the shamans of the Inuit tribes. As a healer, she is known to be one of the deities that a shaman will reach out to in order to obtain the abilities and knowledge to heal. I chose Pinga because I enjoy learning about First Nations history, religion, and culture. Pinga was a very interesting goddess as she played an important part in the afterlife of humans. She also taught me a lot about the spiritual beliefs of the Inuit tribes in North America. Viracocha is a creator god originally worshipped by the pre-Inca inhabitants of Peru and was later assimilated into the Inca pantheon. He was believed to have created the sun and moon on Lake Titicaca. According to the tradition, after forming the rest of the heavens and the earth, Viracocha wandered through the world teaching men the arts of civilization. He walked westward across the Pacific, promising to return one day. The Incas believed that Viracocha was a remote being who left the daily working of the world to the surveillance of the other gods that he had created. He was actively worshipped by the nobility, primarily in times of crisis. I chose Viracocha because he was a very ancient and fascinating god with a lot of history. He also stood out to me as I have a documentary in which he was mentioned, wanting me to do more research and gain more knowledge. Hades is a god in Greek mythology who rules the land of the dead called the Underworld. He is one of the three most powerful Greek gods along with his brothers Zeus and Poseidon. Hades had complete control of the underworld and all its subjects. Besides being an immortal god, one of his special powers was invisibility. He wore a helmet called the Helm of Darkness that allowed him to become invisible. Hades was the son of Cronus and Rhea, the king and queen of the Titans. Hades and his brothers drew lots to divide up the world. Zeus drew the sky, Poseidon drew the sea, and Hades drew the underworld. The underworld is where the dead people go in Greek mythology. Hades had a giant three-headed dog named Cerberus. Cerberus guarded the entrance of the underworld. He kept the living from entering and the dead from escaping. Another helper for Hades was Charon. Charon was Hades' ferryman. He would take the dead on a boat across the river from the world of the living to the underworld. Hades became very lonely in the underworld and wanted a wife. Hades' wife Persephone lives with Hades for 4 months of the year. These months are represented by winter when nothing grows. I chose Hades because I find Greek mythology and the gods very interesting. I also enjoy learning about the possible life after death from the perspective of different religions. His role in the underworld, along with some of his companions' roles, were very interesting and taught me about Greek mythology. Morgan is a European goddess of death and guardian of the dead, whom archaeological evidence now tells us dates back beyond the Copper Age, and was the dominant goddess of Europe called the Great Goddess. She is a bird goddess and earth goddess, and her breasts not only nourish the living, but they also regenerate the dead. In New Grange, Ireland, is her grand megalithical tomb shrine. Within it are 3 stone cells, 3 stone basins, engravings of triple snake spirals, coils, arcs, and brow ridges. Her followers do energetic ring dances dangerous to an intruder who tries to break in. Morgan is not death itself, she is the keeper and goddess of death, and she is frightening. Sometimes enemies ran because of the fearful and magical appearance of the army. She represents her own power, reincarceration, rebirth, and a point of view which can't be banished. I chose Morgan because she was very unique and different from other European gods and also had a lot of interesting history that had a lot of followers in Ireland, gods that had a lot of popularity, therefore decided to research her. Bixia is a Chinese fertility goddess who protects young children and mothers. In addition to her formal title, Bixia had a second name which translates to Queen of the Earth. She's also colloquially referred to as Heavenly Immortal Lady. During the Great Flood of China, when the flow of the Yellow River was catastrophically diverted from its usual course, Bixia was the deity who set the river back into place, saving the lives of many people in China and is most commonly worshipped in the northern regions of China. I chose Bixia because I found her story very fascinating and also wanted to learn more about the common beliefs people share in China. I learned about Chinese history as well as the historical significance of the Yellow River. Enroa is the sky god, supreme god and creator. It's believed that Enroa created a set of twins who were the first man and woman on Earth. They had magical powers, and from them many pairs of female and male twins were born until Jackie, Andri, Bidu, the hero ancestors, were born. It is their sons who are said to be the founders of the present Legbura clans of Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Enroa is the god of the Legbura, whose tribal territories stretch across the border of Zaire and Uganda. Enroa was formerly achieved through child sacrifice, but since the 1930s rams have been substituted as victims. He has half a body, one eye, one ear, one arm, and one leg. He is a god of two halves. In fact, he is half good and half evil. The good half remained in heaven while the nasty side became the snacky Enroa and took charge of earthly things. I chose Enroa because I found his story very interesting and wanted to learn more about the good half, evil half, and their roles. I also wanted to learn about the historical significance in Uganda and Zaire. Who is known as the war god with the angry face. He is the son of Rangi and Papa, and he does not get on well with his storm godbrother Tavhira Amatia, who is much more pushy. Tu is a formidable deity of battle with a famously angry expression on his face. In his spare time, he enjoys gardening, fishing, hunting, and watching humans perform food and fighting related rituals for his approval. I chose Tu because unlike the other gods on this list, he was the only war god and also had a fairly interesting story. I also enjoy gardening and fishing in my spare time, making him more relatable. Wad and Jinnah are a set of powerful and intriguing creation gods. Wad Jinnah came down from the Milky Way during Dreamtime and created the Earth and all its inhabitants before heading back home for reinforcement. The Wad Jinnah came to Earth and spent their Dreamtime creating, teaching, and being godlike to the natives. They are still worshipped and respected top gods to this day. These entities were so powerful that they did not need to speak, so they didn't bother to have mouths. But many ancient cave paintings still exist and show eerie creatures with large heads, huge black spacesuit-like garments. They look just like grey aliens from modern UFO abduction scenarios. I chose this god because Wad Jinnah were very unique gods, as they looked like gods from modern-day UFO abduction scenarios, movies, books, and TV shows. Wad Jinnah also stood out from other gods as they were unique and different. Lumba Lumba is the god of gluttony and great crashing. He started off as a whale who came ashore in the form of a man who knew sacred rituals which he was happy to share. However, when it came to food, he took more than his share, declaring himself sacred so that only he could eat at feasts. Consequently, everybody stopped inviting him, but this made no difference as he turned up anyway. Fed up with eating leftover scraps, Lumba Lumba became partial to consuming dead children. That was the final straw, and an angry mob set upon him and his two wives with sticks, stones, and spears. They propped his body against a tree, tied it in place with ropes, and built a shade hut over him using branches. Rumor has it that he didn't die after all, but returned to the sea as a whale. I chose Lumba Lumba because I found his story very interesting and unique, as he was a whale who could turn into a mad, strange obsession with food. Overall, this god stood out more than other Australian gods. Pele is the most visible of all the ancient Hawaiian gods and goddesses. Her full name is Pele Hanu Mia, she who shapes the sacred land. This goddess of fire and volcano continues to devour the big islands with molten lava, also creating new land in the process. Small towns and entire forests have been wiped out by Pele's passionate, unpredictable, and volatile temper, and while her presence is felt on all of the Hawaiian Islands, legend maintains that she resides in one of the most active volcanoes in the world, at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park on the Big Islands. In folklore, Pele travels through the islands, appearing to mankind as a beautiful young woman or as an old woman, sometimes accompanied by a white dog. Those who refuse her request suffer her wrath according to legends. Among the people of the islands, Pele is revered and respected. I chose Pele because I always wanted to expand my knowledge about the Hawaiian culture, religions, tribes, and therefore chose Pele to gain some knowledge about them.